Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. So Jim Lampley looked like he's going to be back as a broadcaster for Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia. Now, the veteran broadcaster, he's going to be providing ringside commentary, but I'm not sure if he's going to be part of the broadcast team or he's going to be providing ringside commentary for another platform. But the bottom line, he's going to be there. And I think Jim Lampley, man, that guy, he just sounds like a broadcaster. You know what I'm saying? Like it was meant for him to be involved in TV, radio, to be behind a microphone. But anyway, even though Jim Lampley is rooting for Tszyu, I misspelled Tszyu's name, is rooting for Tszyu. So let me correct that. Took it to the stupid, didn't I? Let me correct this real quick. There we go. See, the magic took the E off. But anyway, he went on to talk about something that he experienced as a young man. And I think boxing is missing a huge opportunity here to have, in my opinion, the best ringside broadcaster, the best person to provide ringside commentary. They're missing a huge opportunity, man, by not having Jim Lampley at every major fight. They should have him at every fight, but I know he can't do them all. But at least every major fight, and that's my opinion. But he talked about a couple things. The first was with Mike Tyson against Jesse Ferguson, where he said he was getting ready to leave, right, that fight, and he said there was something sitting on his brown leather portfolio because they were just talking about blood spattering on the commentator's clothing and just being soaked in blood. So when they were talking about that, this is where he came and started talking about the situation. And he said there was something sitting on his brown leather portfolio at the table ringside. He said it looked like a strawberry. He said, and I thought, how did I get a wet strawberry on top of my brown leather portfolio? And he said when he looked closer and picked it up and realized, oh my God, that's the inside of Jesse's nose, which in fact it was. You can't have a more vivid illustration of boxing punishment than the inside of Jesse Ferguson's nose sitting on your portfolio. So that's one thing he was talking about, the different things that he's seen in boxing, and just how brutal it can be, and when guys are soaked in blood. But then he was talking about Tszyu struggling, and his team struggling to get control of that blood and how they were unsuccessful. And he said that his memories drifted back almost 70 years as he was watching what happened with Tszyu after Fundora's elbow carved that gash in the top of Tszyu's skull. And what he said is, when he was a young guy, like 3 or 4 years old, his older brother was allowed to take him down the street to play with some other kids. And he said the street where they lived at that time wasn't fully paved. He said it was partially a rock road, and somehow or another, his brother dropped him head first onto a jagged rock. Anyway, he ended up carrying him home screaming and yelling, and his brother thought Jim was going to die. He said he had blood soaked all through his t-shirt, blood soaked jeans, etc., etc. And he said his uncle, who happened to be a doctor, he said his uncle is the one that explained to him that the top of your skull is the most populated convergence of blood vessels anywhere in the body. So that explains why with Tszyu and his team, they must not have known that. That's why with Tszyu, the way that blood just kept flowing and flowing, they couldn't get control of it. And he says what his uncle explained to him is because the brain needs blood, so there are more blood vessels interacting with each other and connecting to each other on the top of the skull than anywhere else in the body. And he said the instant that he saw where the elbow had cut the top of Tszyu's head, he said he made the comment to the effect, they're not going to be able to stop this bleeding. This is going to be an enormously prolific blood flow. There is no technique by which a cut man can stop this. And you're going to be seeing a gruesome bloodbath if the fight continues. And this would have been great to have him there commentating on the fight. But for whatever reason, he's not getting the opportunities. And I think it's because whenever a PBC event gets put on, Al Haymon looks out for his guys. And, you got to respect that. Now, he says, which of course is exactly what happened. They couldn't get control of the blood. He said, and if he hadn't been dropped by his brother on his head in Carolina, he was 3 or 4 years old. He's like, I don't know that I would have known what I knew at that moment. So he recognized immediately that Tszyu was going to have problems. And of course, he can't go and talk to anybody or say anything, but it would have been nice to have him kind of imparting that wisdom to us as the viewer. But he did continue on about Tszyu, and he said, a governing body has to straighten this out. Somebody has to get involved in creating a proper, just outcome here by making sure that Tszyu gets a rematch when he wants a rematch and when he's ready to do it. I think we all agree that Tszyu deserves an opportunity at something big. That loss on his record is kind of like Roy Jones against a little short, thick guy, man. His name just came to my mind. Can't remember his name. Well, let me stop because I'm going to go crazy trying to remember it. But when Roy Jones took that loss, he did hit that guy late and shit, but that loss shouldn't have been on Roy Jones' record. But anyway, he says, Fedora's a nice guy. I don't wish him any ill will. I'm happy for him that he got his circumstances and the convenience of a title more or less dropped into his lap. What a lot of us feel. But he needs to go back into the ring with Tszyu and defend his new status rather than simply being allowed to go forward and exploit it without Tszyu having any say. So Jim Lampley is rooting for Tszyu. And I don't blame him. I actually agree with Jim Lampley. But it's interesting to know that he actually went through what he went through as a kid and had that explained to him as a young man about the vessels on top of the scalp and how they're necessary to bring the blood flow to the brain, and how you're not stopping that kind of bleeding if you get that kind of injury. Absolutely interesting. That being said, y'all keep cool. Glad to see Jim Lampley's going to be back this weekend. I really hope he's going to be on the part of the broadcast that's airing for, this is Golden Boy, The Zone. I think it's going to be airing on The Zone. Nonetheless, I hope he's going to be part of the main broadcast team, not just doing something secondary right there on ringside, but it's not getting aired, because I would rather hear him than hear them goddamn guys from The Zone. I don't like hearing them talk about boxing, period. Jim Lampley, they need him. Y'all keep cool in the breeze.